All right, folks, thank you for joining, and we are thrilled to have you join us today. We have a pretty exciting agenda. So today's topic is AI and the future of requirements management. Kind of a sneak peek to the agenda is that we have a couple of interesting speakers. We have a partner and friend and uh, industry insider, I'd say, joining us. We have our CTO and CEO Asif joining as a part of our fireside chat. We're also going to be showing everyone Copilot for DevOps Plus, an AI um, standalone experience for Azure DevOps. So we have a lot on the agenda for today. So we're going to get this party started. But before we begin, I have a few housekeeping items as a reminder. Next. Thank you. So we'll be sending the recording of this webinar to your inbox by the end of the week. It will also be available on our website in the next couple of days. Yeah, slide two there, perfect. We have allocated some time at the end of the session for an open floor Q&A, but also feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A window at any time during the webinar. We'll also address these questions the best we can, but if we do run out of time, please feel free to email those questions to info@copilotfordevops.com. There will also be a survey at the end of the webinar. Please take a few minutes to provide your valuable feedback, as you know, we're always looking to improve. So today we're actually going to be trying something a little bit different with our fireside chat, and we're very excited about it. This is actually a suggestion made by one of you folks in one of our previous webinars. So let me introduce myself. My name is Sheehan. I am the SVP of Global Sales here at Modern Requirements, and I'm going to serve as your MC today. The high-level agenda is that I'm gonna show and share a little bit about who we are as an organization here at Modern Requirements. If you're new to us, we're gonna talk a little bit about Copilot for DevOps. Then I'll have our client success manager Dinesh do a demonstration of Copilot for DevOps Plus, that AI experience with an ADO, that standalone AI experience with an ADO. And then we're going to turn it over to a fireside chat between Asif Sharif, our CTO and CEO, and Steve Lang, a developer specialist over at Microsoft. Finally, we're going to wrap up with a Q&A. We're going to open the floor to ask some questions of our panelists today. Next. So time is our ultimate currency. If you've interacted with me or anyone on the team here at Modern Requirements, you've likely heard our battle cry. We are passionate about this statement because we here at Modern Requirements believe that how you spend your time matters, and all the tooling, the dev, the research, the R&D that we do is really to help our clients to be more efficient with their time, be more accurate, and ultimately drive the time to value on all your projects by using our tools. And then we know that if we're saving you time, we're saving you money, but also if we can help you be more accurate, you're going to end up with a better product. We've been helping clients for over 20 years, and for over a decade, we've been a Microsoft partner building high fidelity extensions into what used to be called TFS, but which is now called Azure DevOps today. Next. So talk a little bit about the benefits of our partnership between Modern Requirements and Microsoft is that, number one, we have been, again, partners with them for over 10 years. And by looking at Modern Requirements tooling, there are a few benefits. A, we're available on the Azure Marketplace. So that simplifies the procurement process. Because we're a Microsoft partner, we end up working very closely with your Microsoft representative for your organization. So we work as a team together to help you, extend the Azure DevOps experience using Modern Requirements. Also, we are Max certified. So what that means is that if you decide on Copilot for DevOps Plus as the AI solution for your organization, and you do have a Microsoft Azure consumption commitment, by purchasing Modern Requirements on the Azure Marketplace, it will actually decrement your MAC and ultimately help your overall Microsoft relationship. So being a partner and choosing Modern Requirements and Copilot for DevOps Plus may have a benefit to your overall Microsoft relationship. Next. So our relationship with Microsoft has evolved actually over the last 2 years. We had joined in we raised our hand to be the builder of Copilot for Azure DevOps, and that started about the end of 22. On the top left-hand side of this image that you're seeing is Nicole Dezen. She is the Chief Partner Officer at Microsoft, and at Inspire in 2023, she highlighted us as an AI transformation partner, as you can see of our logo there on the top left. On the bottom right is Kevin Scott. He is the CTO of Microsoft. And last week at Build, when he was addressing a group, he was talking about AI partners as well. And as you can see there on the first column in the image behind him, and the third logo from the bottom, there we are again. So our relationship with Microsoft has evolved, and we are one of those AI transformation partners working in hand with the Microsoft team to try to bring you the highest fidelity AI extension into Azure DevOps. Today, we're going to be showing you Copilot for DevOps Plus, which is our next big leap forward in bringing an AI experience to ADO that's simple to use and also secure. Next. So for you folks who may not have heard of model requirements in the past, and this is your first foray into seeing our tool, we create a complete requirements management tool set for ADO. So on the top, you'll see all the different capabilities that Azure DevOps provides. On the bottom are all the different capabilities that Mono Requirements extends into Azure DevOps. So things like Smart Docs, which is a word-like container, or review management if you're sending something for sign-off, or commentary, trace analysis, the ability to see trace matrices with a couple of clicks. And then, which brings us to the bottom row there, we see Copilot for DevOps. Now, Copilot for DevOps is our first AI assistant that was brought into the ADO experience, and we did that in 2023 for our existing clients. And the feedback was from our existing clients is that they'd love to see a Copilot for DevOps standalone option. And that's really what we're here to do today, is to show you Copilot for DevOps Plus, which is our AI solution that is a standalone. So if you are looking for the complete suite of modern requirements, requirements management, then modern requirements is a tool for you. If you're looking for just the AI component, the Copilot for DevOps Plus is going to be that tool you're going to be able to use. Let's talk a little bit more about Copilot for DevOps Plus. Next slide. So Microsoft and Modern Requirements have been working together on Copilot for DevOps, and we've come together and put together these capabilities that you see on the screen. Analysis allows you to use AI to proofread your work items, give you suggestions how to improve upon them, and even allow you to choose the methodology of what type of analysis you want to do. If we came out of the box standard with the 6Cs methodology, but now in our latest iteration, you'll actually have a choice of which type of analysis you'd like to do against your current work items. Elicit is the one that blows everyone's socks off when they see it. It's the ability to use AI to build out your hierarchy. So let's say you have an epic and you're looking to build out what features. You can, with a couple of clicks, boom, have a complete list of all the features that GPT-4o would suggest for you based on that epic. Then there's the options of converting to Gherkin, use case, and that could be a lot of manual labor to do so, but using AI, it's only a few clicks away. And then some of our newest capabilities we're really excited to show and share today, such as Dynamic Prompt. Dynamic Prompt allows you to run a query and then use prompt engineering to ask questions about it. So for example, you do a query and then say, hey, does this query satisfy a certain security standard or safety standard? Or maybe you want to run two queries and compare them and do gap analysis using AI to get rid of all the grunt work so you can focus your energy where it's needed most. So that being said, we'll go to the next slide. The two questions we get the most when we first launched Copilot for DevOps is it easy to use? Will my organization have the know or wherewithal to make the most out of it? And the second big question is it safe? Well, to address the first question, is it easy to use? Yes. And the way we've designed Copilot for DevOps is so that beginners or folks who are not familiar with AI or prompt engineering are able to get the most out of it with just a few clicks. However, with custom instructions and dynamic prompt, if you are an avid AI user and you like prompt engineering, with custom prompts and dynamic prompt, you can really dial in what you're asking the model to do for you to really get a fine-tuned response. So it's good for folks who are just starting out and using AI, and for folks who are avid users, you can flex to handle that as well. In terms of security, we're using Azure AI Service, which actually recently was approved by the US federal government for the government cloud. And when using that API, your intellectual property is protected and is not being learned by the large language model. It's a question we get all the time. It's like, well, we'd love to use AI, but our fears are, will the large language model learn our intellectual property? And the answer to that is no, it won't. One of the items that I've recently heard in one of my conversations with the CTO is that his big concern is that people are using, ChatGPT or AI models outside of their work. And his decision to move forward with Copilot for DevOps Plus is to put something in the hands of his team so that at least the folks who are using it in the safest possible manner. So accessibility and security are key to us and key to the success of implementing AI within an organization. Next slide. There are two ways in kicking off a trial. We are offering a 30-day trial of Copilot for DevOps Plus. If you visit copilotfordevops.com, it'll link you to either the Azure Marketplace or the Visual Studio Marketplace. And from either means, you can kick off that trial and give it a test. See if it's the right fit for you, and you'll find that you'll end up saving immense amounts of time. Next slide. For folks who are existing clients of Model Requirements and hold an Enterprise or Enterprise Plus license, Copilot for DevOps is available to you already. So if you don't have access to it, let us know. We'll help you get set up. And to invoke or to try out Copilot for DevOps Plus with the enhanced capabilities, when you open Copilot for DevOps, on the top left-hand side, there'll be an option for you to upgrade for the demo, a trial, and you'll be able to test out some of the newest capabilities from our R&D team. So you'll get a chance to play. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to our Client Success Manager, Dinesh, who's going to walk you through and show you live how Copilot for DevOps Plus works. Dinesh, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Shyam. And let me go ahead and share my screen here. So with Copilot for DevOps, we provide a plethora of AI-driven functionalities that you can run against any work item, standard work items, custom work items that you have in your project. You can open the work item directly or just go in from your context menu and run Copilot for DevOps. Now here you see all of the different functionalities that are available in Copilot, as well as some of the ones that are available in Copilot Plus that you see at the bottom: dynamic prompts, pseudocode, and test script. Now with Copilot, you can perform analysis on your work items. This could be your requirements, your features, functional requirements, whatever you're working with. You can select the fields that you'd like to provide as input, and from there generate analysis based on that input. Now we provide standard analysis with your 6 C's: clarity, conciseness, correctiveness. Copilot will evaluate it with a rating, the reason for that rating, and ways that you can improve that work item as per that criteria. You can take some of these suggestions and you can plug it back into your work item and see how well your changes grade out. If you'd like to add in any custom instructions as well as part of the assessment, that's something that you can also do under the custom instructions panel if you'd like to add another criteria or leverage another type of analysis when assessing your work items. Now this analysis also provides a summary as well as an overall quality score so that you can see the synopsis of your assessment as well as ways you can improve it at the bottom. This can be also copied and shared externally outside of Azure DevOps. Now, the custom instructions panel allows you to select your AI model and which one you'd like to run your execution on, as well as any custom instructions that you'd like to append as part of the execution. Now, from analysis, you'll be able to refine how well your requirement is written, and with a well-defined requirement, you can plug that into Elicit to derive additional work items from that input. So let's say we have a feature that we're providing as an input. We can also select fields, standard fields, custom fields are acceptable. And from there, we can select any work item from our project to create from that initial feature. So this could be any work item, could be a requirement. If you're working with a requirement as an input, you can go ahead and build test cases, which provides an efficient path to building your validation strategy. With requirements, you can also select the fields that you'd like to populate as an output, and from there, go ahead and generate. And what Copilot will do is go through the inputted work item, analyze it, understand it well enough to generate requirements to support it. Each requirement, at least for this example, will have its own title and description. But again, if you have other custom fields that you'd like to populate as part of the Elicit functionality, you can specify that here under the output fields column, and you'll have those fields populated as well. Now, this is a suggested list of work items. For the work items that you deem relevant and would like to use in your project, you can simply select them and publish them into a work item. From here, you can select the link type and ensure your traceability needs are met when generating these work items from Copilot for DevOps, and go ahead and create them in your project. The ones that you don't deem necessary to build as a requirement, you can simply omit those. You don't have to create them. This is just a suggested list for you to work off of and use going forward. Similar to requirements, you can essentially build any work item from your project. So if you've already have some requirements in your project and you like to automate the way you generate test cases for them, you can go ahead and elicit test cases from those requirements and build out a foundational set of test cases to use to validate that requirement. Now, the Elicit functionality, similar to analysis, also has a custom instructions panel where you can add in your own custom instructions as well as choose your AI model in which you want to run this execution on. Now, some of the other functionalities that are available in Copilot Plus are the ones that you see at the bottom: dynamic prompt, pseudocode, and test script. With pseudocode, you're able to feed any work item as an input, as well as the fields, and from there be able to build out source code for that work item. We have a list of supported languages that you can select from, and from there be able to generate source code that can be copied and shared externally, or it can also be published back into a work item within Azure DevOps if need be. Now, this also includes a custom instructions panel. So if you'd like to switch AI engines, if you'd like to add in your own custom instructions as part of the execution, that is also something that you can include as part of your prompt. So with the results, as mentioned, you can copy this and use it in other platforms, other developmental platforms. You can, of course, publish this back into a work item. But if it's something you'd like to capture within a field of that existing work item, that is also something that you can do. You can click on Add to Field and publish this information directly back into the work item that you provided as an input. Now with the code that's generated, you'll see once it's rendered, you'll be able to not only have the code, but also comments, which allow you to follow along on the functionalities and the code that's being generated so that it gives you an idea of what each part of the code is doing. Now, alongside the development of your source code, we also provide the ability to create your test scripts for validation efforts. And that is also a functionality that's part of Copilot Plus. You're able to access that here under test scripts. You can feed in any work item and from there select a test script to generate. We have a variety of different frameworks that we support. You can simply select one and go ahead and generate your test scripts for that work item. So again, this could be any work item, requirements, lower level work items that you'd like to build unit level tests for. You can generate that here as well. Now, similar to your pseudocode functionality, you will have the ability to copy your test scripts and the information that's provided in the results and share that externally. You'll have the ability to publish those results into a work item in your project. And if you'd like to publish that information back into the field of a work item, you can simply click on Add to Field and publish that back into the existing work item under another field. Now, similar to the elicit and analysis, you're able to specify different engines that you'd like to run your execution on. So from there, you can select the model. Of course, with ChatGPT or with 4.0, with 4 Turbo and 4.0, it will consume more tokens, but will provide better results as well.
Hey, Dinesh, are you using 4.0 model?
This one's being generated on 4 Turbo.
Okay, yeah, you should switch to for further stuff, switch to 4.0 because 4.0 is much faster. Yeah, you know what? Let me take control. I've shared my screen now. So guys, I think the issue using the test environment. I'm going to just use the one that's going live. So guys, the test script produces this script. So I've used NUnit here, but you can take your requirement and you can give it, say, for example, Selenium, and it'll go generate Selenium code for you, and then you can use it. Now, what's interesting about this is that you are giving it a requirement. Now, the requirement can be high level or detailed. Of course, the more detailed your requirement is, the better your Selenium code will be produced in the process that that you can use as a starting point for your automated unit testing work. Okay. Of course, this is more from a developer perspective that that you would be using, as opposed to from BA or a product owner perspective. So you can see now it generated a pretty robust framework for you to work on this data analysis for this gene spectroscopy software, whatever that is. Obviously, ChatGPT gets it. Some of you might get it, but based on this, it's actually generated your stuff here. Similarly, if you go to we were looking at pseudocode, you can generate pseudocode that has its own relevance, where you can take the code that that we want to produce. You can produce either pseudocode, which is just plain English, it'll create the thing for you, or you can generate code in R or TypeScript or whatever you fancy, and they'll build out your framework for you. And so if you go pseudocode, it'll take this and then create a pseudocode framework for you. Of course, again, the more detailed your requirement is, the more detailed will be your output. Now, one thing to remember is last week, OpenAI and Microsoft launched GPT-4o. So we have already incorporated that and launched it. So if you start a trial, or if you're using it as a client, you will see 4o is now available to you, and you can be using it. So you can see this is sort of the outline, but again, depending on the code, the input will produce the output, but you can use it to generate a bunch of other things as well. One of my favorites is to generate, so let's do spectral calibration, and we can go ahead and we can say, let's see what we want to do here. Oh yeah, convert to Gherkin. So you can convert this to Gherkin. Again, I'm using 4o as the model. I'll leave this as the default. You can choose which language you want your output in. So that's pretty interesting. We had clients that were coming from all around the world. They said, nah, we really want our output to be in this language. We don't want to translate later on. And you can give it custom instructions. Now, this is the most interesting part, because here, what you can do is you can give it specific direction. What else to consider? Now, if you leave it empty, Copilot is smart enough to know what to ask it. Now, in addition to that, you can provide other instructions in there as well. And then we can go ahead and you can say, okay, you know what, create my Gherkin text out of this. Of course, Gherkin is used for test-driven development, but as a person who does write requirements, I think Gherkin is a brilliant way of communicating. It's a very easy to read method. If you take a look at sort of user stories or other formats, you'll find that it is not that convenient. And what Gherkin does, it says, given this and this, when this happens and this happens, then these should happen. So it creates these almost like rule sets of what needs to be processed. Now, imagine reading what's on the left-hand side and deciphering what is on the right-hand side. It would be a nearly impossible task. It would be very difficult. People would create a lot of bugs. But now, if you have this rule set-like structure, it is much more potent. It's much more precise that people can build against, right? So just a beautiful tool. Really, the end game that you're facing here is, can you take the work you do and unload a lot of it to Copilot for DevOps and get it to define your, I guess this is a CMMI template. So in this case, I'll take my feature and get it to define my requirements. Okay. And then get it to get all the details of the requirement, right? So you can see what your strategy ought to be, in my opinion, is how can I use Copilot as my co-pilot, let it do a lot of the hard work for me, and I will oversee it. I will direct it. And I'll update it. I'll review the work it's doing. But my goal is to be as efficient as possible and spend more time with my stakeholders in order to understand their needs, but then collaborate with Copilot to build all this content. And you'll find that Copilot can come up with requirements that are often missed by people. Okay, so in this case, I just went and said I want a lot of the requirements, and on this feature, it's come up with about 25 different requirements. And now you can say which ones are valid. How long would it take for you or anyone that even understands this topic well to identify these requirements, right? It would take a long time. It would be a time-consuming task. So what we have found in our own work internally is what would have taken us, this is at least a day's work, maybe 2 or 3. We can get this, as you can see, done in 5 minutes if you wanted to. But then you have to go through it and make sure this is exactly what you want, right? So in that case, you are going to spend an hour maybe and fine tune it and make it your own, right? So in this way, you are way better off, right? In working with an AI tool, with Copilot for DevOps directly in Azure DevOps to empower whatever you are doing. In fact, I heard a really good use case. What some of my product owners are doing, not only are they using this to create their user stories or product backlog items, but what they're doing is they're running analysis on it to find what are the limitations, what are the issues of the requirements. And as you can see, it's going to go through and tell you how to make it better, like Dinesh was showing you earlier. And then you can go ahead and improve your requirements, right? Or if you're working with risks or hazards or whatever you have, it will analyze even your test cases. It'll tell you how to make it better, right? So now what happens is what they then started to do. One of my POs said, you know what? Why don't I go here and identify bugs? What bugs could come out of that requirement? Okay. So it was he started to look at all the bugs that he could think about, and or Copilot for DevOps could think about, and then say, you know what, how do I make sure that this bug does not happen because of my requirements? There was another way to improve it. Okay, so now instead of spending 2 days, he's not spending 1 hour, but he's spending 2 hours because he's going through this extra legwork. But still, instead of 2 days, he's spending 2 hours to do this work, right? So it's a much more intelligent way to do this work. And if you're a tester, then from a test perspective, you can certainly create your test cases, right? You can create your test cases, and it will create your test steps. It'll create all the appropriate artifacts for you, given your test case. Sorry, given your requirement, or in this case, a feature. So it's looking at more of an integration test case there. Okay. As a tester, what you can also do is you can come here and do your analysis on your test case. You can generate Gherkin, because that will really help with your testing, or creating test data even. And you can go and create test scripts, right? So there are several tools for testers. As developers, you can analyze the requirements you're getting. You can elicit for various types of tasks that should be done. You can do pseudocode from here, and so on and so forth. And of course, dynamic prompt is a whole. It's just an amazing tool where you can actually ask it to do a variety of things. And we don't have time today to get into it, but I've spoken about this in the previous webinar, and we have some content on our website, on the copilotfordevops.com website on this. But this allows you to provide work item input through 1 or 2 queries and your own custom prompts. So for example, if you wanted to say, hey, give me, here's all the features of my system, here's what the client is asking, tell me what is missing. It'll do a deep analysis and give you the answer for that, which could take days, if maybe weeks to complete. Now you can do it in a few hours, if that, right? Depending on how big a data set you have. So that's really how Copilot for DevOps works. I have not shown you everything, but I think you can extrapolate from there.
Amazing, and thank you for jumping in there, Asif. And if you can share my next slide, Darshni, that'd be fantastic. Next. So as you can see, guys, we'll go back to that previous slide there for a moment, Darshni. As you can see, we've incorporated AI in a practical way, and as Asif, that was Asif, by the way, showed you, just with a few clicks you're away from leveraging the power of GPT-4o, which is the newest model that OpenAI has put out, through the Azure AI service, so it's secure. So going back to 2, accessibility and security, because it's natively built into ADO, once you hit publish on those work items that Asif was, or those test cases or those requirements that you've elicited, by clicking publish, they're immediately saved into your ADO instance natively. That's what makes having an AI solution natively integrated in ADO, but also leveraging security, making it the best possible, first step or first meaningful step for an organization to leverage AI to save time. So that being said, we do have a bit of a poll. If we go to the next slide, and we want to kick that off. We asked that everyone quickly answers the couple of the question that we have here, and then we're going to turn it over to the next phase of our webinar today. Are you currently a model requirements for DevOps user? I'll give everyone a moment to respond. Okay, so we got a bit of a mixed group. Some yes, some no, and some currently evaluating. Excellent. Well, for the folks who have said no, We are, again, as a quick reminder, we are doing a 30-day trial. You can access that at copilotfordevops.com through the Azure Marketplace or through the Visual Studio Marketplace. Next up, and our next question, how likely do you think it is that AI is going to be central to DevOps activities? Okay. So we're almost 50-50, but weighted towards very likely, and we believe so too. We seeing how we've implemented Copilot for DevOps internally last year and looking at it this year, I want to say as an organization, we're 4x. We went from one big major release to 2 already this year and 2 more on the docket. So we are seeing the results of enabling AI in our development process. Next question. Initial feedback is that Copilot for DevOps Plus has improved productivity by 50%. How would you spend that time you saved? Give everyone another brief moment here. Okay, collaborating with stakeholders, doing data analysis, and go on vacation. I love that. Yeah, I mean, if you can remove or limit the amount of sweat equity it takes to do your work and focus more on developing your expertise and helping the business refine what their goals are or help them achieve them, that's probably the best way to spend that additional time. So great. And I think we have one more. Are you interested in a custom demo of Copilot for DevOps Plus? Okay. Give everyone 10 more seconds. Okay, it's kind of a combination. Okay, and our team will be reaching out to you for folks who said yes. We will be reaching out to you to set that up for you. And for folks who are interested in a trial, we'll send you the link. We'll make sure we reach out, send you a link for the trial so that you can get started and play with it yourself. Okay, to our next phase of this webinar, which I'm really excited about, is our fireside chat. We're going to be talking about 4 high-level topics: AI and the future of DevOps and requirements management. Talk a little bit about Microsoft and their AI development. Benefits of using AI, we already touched upon that a little bit, but I'm very excited to hear from both Steve and Asif about that. And lastly, ROI on future of AI tools. So those are kind of the areas we're going to touch upon. But before we dive into it, I want to introduce our speakers. And so we're going to first up, we have Steve Lang, the Senior Developer Specialist in the area of the US Health and Life Sciences. Steve engages with customers to drive developer productivity and focuses on ensuring developer happiness through effective tooling and practices. With his expertise in Microsoft's developer tools portfolio, including Azure DevOps, Visual Studio, and the GitHub platform, Steve has been with Microsoft for close to 20 years, contributing to the fields of software configuration management, requirements management, and application lifecycle management. In fact, Steve has been working with us for several years and has seen us grow and develop in that 10-year partnership. And our second speaker is none other than our CEO and CTO, Asif Sharif, who many of you might be familiar with. He is dedicated to transforming the DevOps domain by implementing AI in meaningful and practical and simple to use ways. And that's what's brought us Copilot for DevOps. So with that being said, maybe I'll turn it over to you, Steve, for a moment before we start touching on some of the topic areas. Steve, you want to share a few thoughts?
Sure. Thank you for that, Xian. Yeah, it's nice to meet you all. I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. I was looking through the attendee list. I see several folks that I think we've crossed paths with in the past. It's great to be here to kind of work with Asif to kind of talk through some specific areas around AI's applicability into modern requirements management, and AI's applicability into the overall DevSecOps lifecycle. It's really been if you've followed it all with how AI and the concept of Copilot, and now there's a bajillion Copilots coming out from Microsoft, how Microsoft has approached AI, it's really been quite exciting to be along for that ride. Seeing it apply anywhere from modern work, as you see Copilots today baked throughout the Office ecosystem, all the way into the DevSecOps lifecycle, like you're seeing today with Copilot for DevOps. It's just been a really wonderful journey to see the evolution of it, to find new use cases every day and working with my customers. As Shihan mentioned, I've been at Microsoft for almost 20 years. Started before the even alpha version of Team Foundation Server was born, all the way to the advent of the cloud in Azure and the morphing of Team Foundation Server into Azure DevOps. And kind of seeing how that has modernized the development practices and workflows for teams, and seeing how that now is sort of taking shifting into yet another gear with the advent and buzz around generative AI. It's just been, again, super exciting to see. So look forward to having this conversation today.
Actually, Steve, you touched on something, and maybe this is probably a good place to kick things off, but where have you seen generative AI being applied to the DevSecOps lifecycle, and has one stood out as being particularly impactful?
Great question. So I've kind of seen it, some of the basic areas we think might be pretty pretty rudimentary, just to quickly plug in around just some very tactical areas in the DevOps lifecycle. If you think of the lifecycle as something very circular, seeing things just around initial things like bug triage in the CI/CD pipeline. When a deployment or a build fails, rather than having a human look at the bug that comes back into ADO, why not have like generative AI take a pass at trying to triage that for you? So very simple little things like that, and those are very easy to implement. And then seeing other areas too, from maybe like say more the development coding phase. The most popular AI assistant tooling today, which is GitHub Copilot, seeing how that is attributing to just massive improvements in developer productivity overall, generating code and iterating on code and finding and fixing and making code more readable much more quickly than on your own or with even a human pair programmer. And feeding that back into the life cycle has been tremendously impactful. And we're finding new sort of applications every day, not just from Microsoft per se, but from working with our customers, helping to detect and remove PHI from code, identifying security vulnerabilities, doing other things around threat intelligence, and even doing even things like behavior analysis, like looking beyond static code or static analysis of code, or even dynamic analysis of running apps, like looking at user behavior patterns and application interactions to find anomalies that maybe a human may not see, or even just looking through a monitor system may not catch. So it's really been quite eye-opening to see. And I'm not exaggerating when I say pretty much every other conversation I have with a customer, AI comes up and they have a specific use case that maybe I haven't quite heard of before. So it's really been exciting.
Thanks. Excuse me. That's pretty good response. Asif, is there anything you want to add there? Is there any tools that have stood out for you that have been particularly impactful, other than the obvious?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I will talk about the obvious, however. So when ChatGPT came out, we were very earlier on looking at how to sort of leverage that within Azure DevOps, modern requirements, and so on. And so we were doing an experiment. We said, okay, how smart is this thing? And no matter how difficult a question we were throwing at it, it came up with generally brilliant answers. So we could not find the edge of its intelligence. And so here's what I've discovered. What I've discovered is that there's a whole conversation around AGI, artificial general intelligence, but But you see, what's going to really happen is AI is obviously improving very fast, and it's going to be a great tool to help us propel forward. It's like the industrial revolution or the information revolution. Just now, it's the AI revolution, but what's going to happen is that AI will never be human. They will never be able to do what we do in so many different ways. But what it will do, it will be better than us in many ways. And you know what? Computers are already better than us in many ways. It can calculate things we cannot calculate. It can process things in a predictable way that we can't. However, so the point is, computers are already way better, programs are way better than us in many ways, but of course, we are the drivers. So I think what's going to happen is as time goes by, AI will become smarter and smarter. And those of us who are smart enough to use that AI to create the future, we will be leading our industries. And so it's really, I think when Microsoft coined the word Copilot in this context, it was brilliant, because it's really a matter of working in conjunction with a intelligent, smart system, and that system will get smarter. And we are doing a ton of things. I think we have about 6 different projects running in parallel in different products to incorporate AI, especially with Microsoft, in within Azure DevOps, within model requirements, and other products like we have codeless1.com as well. And we're incorporating these technologies across the board, right? So it's such an exciting time.
And I think this group as well, Asif, is pretty excited because even with the poll, we had over 50% saying that it's very likely that AI is the future of how we do business and how we manage data. So that being said, and Steve is also optimistic and positive about the impacts of it. But at the same time, I'm going to pose this next question: what are some of the challenges of AI integration in DevSecOps? Maybe Steve, I'd love to get your thoughts on that, and then Asif, I'd love to get your thoughts on that as well.
Sure. I think some of the challenges really come from the uncertainty. And that's talking like a slightly higher level. People often will need to spend some time looking through the legal and ethical landscape of how they plan to implement and use generative AI. I don't think that's a big secret. And then it kind of bleeds into as well data privacy, copyright challenges, and the like. And for example, I mentioned earlier GitHub Copilot. A customer that wants to use GitHub Copilot today will likely and naturally should have concerns about, well, if I'm asking a Copilot to do something, what is it actually doing with my data after it's done answering my question or answering my inquiry? Is that going to be used to retrain the model that is under the covers? And therefore, is it possible that if I inadvertently put some sort of company IP into my question or into ultimately which turns into your prompt, could that show up somewhere else for even a, God forbid, a competitor or whatnot? And so understanding kind of what the implications are of using AI, the type of AI or the type of model that you're using and the context in which you're using it can have an impact on that. And knowing how to navigate that can help mitigate the privacy risks that you might have, and as well as the liability exposure for content makers, et cetera. One of the things that, speaking specifically from the Microsoft side, that we've done is we've introduced a couple of things. As I frequently said, tongue-in-cheek earlier, Microsoft seems to have a Copilot for everything these days. Last fall, we introduced what's called the Copilot Copyright Commitment, which is basically a way of helping cover third-party IP claims based upon copyright, trademarks, trade secrets, et cetera, help cover our customers in the event of an issue like that. We also couple that with our first ever, we're calling it the Responsible AI Transparency Report, which is a fully detailed report, and I'll put a link to it in the chat, that discusses at length how Microsoft is approaching building its own, integrating AI into its own applications and systems, building their own copilots, et cetera. So we give insights of how we build the applications using generative AI, how we make decisions and oversee the deployment of those applications, and then how we support customers as well as they build their own generative AI-based applications. And what we've found is being transparent and open about how we are doing things as responsibly as possible and how we are leading the industry in providing guidance and that level of transparency and providing up guardrails around responsible AI has been really impactful for, I think, providing a level of comfort, if you will, and confidence for our customers to go ahead and leverage AI going forward.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think you touched upon some really important points there, Stephen, around some of the challenges about people being concerned about is their IP getting exposed to large language models for training. And, you know, it's a question that we get all the time. And that's great to hear that Microsoft is putting out, you know, how they are using AI to develop programs. I'm actually looking forward to, you know, seeing that and sharing that along with to our prospective clients and existing clients as well. Is there any other challenge that you've seen or heard of as you've, you know, started to implement AI, and we have implemented AI here at Modern Requirements over the last couple of years?
You know what? I think one of the key things I've seen is we are creatures of habit. And as such, once people are used to doing it in a certain way, they continue to do it. And so I think change management is probably the main issue that I'm seeing. And I think as people experience the power of using Copilot for DevOps, they will start to use it more and more. I mean, if you look at ChatGPT, a lot of people initially was dabbling with it, and now it's part of our lives, right? We use that all the time because it is a smart tool to use, but it took a little while for most people to start to use it, right? So I think change management is the big issue. The question, like Shane, you asked in the poll, was what would you do if you had 50% time left over, right? So if you can double your productivity, what do you do with your time? And that needs to be sort of embraced and thought through and figured out. Are you going on vacation, or are you doing other things that makes your life and your work better, right? So I think change management is the big thing. What do we do when we can be twice as productive?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Actually, you know, I think on that note, talking about productivity, you know, I teed up this next question on that topic. You know, where is Microsoft investing in AI to improve developer productivity? I don't know if you touched upon that, Steve, but I'd like to dig into that one a little bit further.
Yeah, and I kind of already name dropped it a couple of times, but you're seeing that primarily in GitHub Copilot and more broadly the entire GitHub platform. So if you look at the GitHub platform itself, it is being heavily invested in to become basically what GitHub is calling the world's AI-powered DevOps platform. And so you're seeing that pulling up in things like GitHub Advanced Security, and baking AI into security scanning, interpreting security vulnerabilities, et cetera. And that is itself, of course, is extending over to Azure DevOps as well through GitHub Advanced Security for Azure DevOps, which is a tongue twister, so we just affectionately call it GASDO. But the way of infusing AI throughout an entire DevOps platform is really where you're seeing, you know, where Microsoft is seeing the need and the demand for, and through extensibility, which exactly is what Modern Requirements is doing by bringing generative AI in a very easy to consume yet very impactful and productive manner into other phases of the lifecycle beyond just the code. And you even saw in the demo that it even is able to extend into the code, taking an idea and getting it really close to executable code that then a developer, once assigned a task or assigned a story to work against or whatnot, can immediately be productive. We see and we look for those types of inroads and avenues to inject AI to not only speed up the iterative process of software development, but to basically aid and improve the productivity of all actors in the development lifecycle beyond just the developer.
Yeah, I think touching on the bleeding edge of where things are today, and how Microsoft is investing in GitHub Copilot and in those extensions like ours. I think it's a pretty good segue for you, Asif, is that given ChatGPT 4.0 is here, what does the future plans for Copilot for DevOps look like?
You know what? I want to say one thing to Steve. Steve, we have been using GitHub Copilot within our dev teams religiously, and our developers absolutely love it. In fact, not only are we producing better code and more of it, but our people are actually happier because of the assistance. So it's really been a game changer for us to use GitHub Copilot by our developers. So our teams use, our product owners and QA people use Copilot for DevOps. Our developers use it also for some things, but GitHub Copilot is the go-to tool for our developers, and that's been really great.
Awesome. It's great to hear. And I know we're starting to run short on time here, but just to kind of support that, GitHub has obviously done lots of polling and surveying of users as GitHub Copilot came out almost a year and a half ago. And speaking of like developer happiness is kind of a whimsical thing to say, but it does try right back to overall developer productivity, which bleeds into enterprise level productivity as well. The vast majority of customers surveyed, they are saying 87% are spending less mental effort on repetitive tasks. They're spending more time on satisfying work. They're staying more in the flow, which then benefits enterprises down the line as well with increased life cycle or cycle agility, faster developer onboarding. And since you have a higher rate of happy developers, you have a much higher rate of developer retention as well. So you don't have to deal with nearly as much attrition as you may have had to worry about in the past, because your developers are just more productive and they're able to focus on the things that they actually care about. And so to kind of share that the development team at Modern Requirements feels the same is really great to kind of back that up.
Yep.
Brilliant. I'm gonna go. There you go.
So guys, just I've seen some questions come by. I don't think we have enough time today to cover the questions, although we have answered a few of them online, but we can follow up on the rest offline. But just to answer to comment on your question, Xian, what's coming next? So with this release, we now have Copilot for DevOps standalone. So you might find if your organization is using Modern Requirements, 10-15% of your user community might be using it. So let's say you are a 100-person shop, maybe 15-20 people may be using Modern Requirements, but everybody else, or most of everybody else, would want to use Copilot for DevOps. So we made a Copilot for DevOps standalone available, so that they don't have to get the whole Modern Requirements suite for the rest of the people. So Copilot for DevOps is available standalone as well as embedded within Modern Requirements. The second thing is we'll be releasing, so this is version 2. Version 3 is going to be coming out in a couple of months, which one of the key things, a couple of key things it has. One, it has a tool for impact assessment. You can say, I'm going to make this change, tell me what's going to be impacted. So it'll go and do all the magic work and tell you what's going to be impacted. The other thing that it's going to do is it's got create a web app option for me. So you can go to Copilot and say, hey, I want to create a web app for project management, but that also does requesting taking and this and that and the other stuff, and it'll go actually create a web app for you, and then you can sort of work off that. We're also going to be releasing Copilot Enterprise around the same time, which will learn from your corporate data. And although it'll still be private and secure for your use, but it will learn from your corporate data if you like. You can configure it, and so there's a ton of wonderful things coming up down the road. We are working with some of our largest clients in the Fortune 1000 group that is providing us input. We are iterating with them and coming up with these solutions. So if you have thoughts, ideas, please come and share those with us as to what you would like to see in here. And because we like to build things what people want. And so to the extent you've already given us feedback, thank you very much.
And with that, we are 5 minutes over, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and I want to extend a heartfelt thank you, Steve, for joining us today, and Asif as well for your insights and thoughts, and Dinesh for the demonstration. For all the folks who have questions, we're going to reach out to you directly and answer your question via email post the webinar. And again, thank you, everyone. And right now on the screen, you can see a QR code that you can scan to connect with us and get that trial up and running. And you can see there at the bottom, marcus.cheng@copilotfordevops.com. You can reach out to him if you have any additional questions as well. So with that, folks, thank you so much. Again, the video will be available online in the next couple of days, and a link to it will be emailed to you by the end of the week. Thank you again for your time, and have a great rest of your day.